What's up guys, welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh video. In this video I'm going to be going through some BGS returns that I recently got back, as well as showing you the next batch of cards I'm going to be sending out to Beckett in a couple of days. Now I haven't made a video for a little while. The main reason for that is that I have just been quite busy with various different things going on in my life. But that being said, I am back now, and yeah, let's get right into this BGS return. So if you've seen my recent videos, you'll probably remember that the last submission I got back from Beckett was really not the best and had a lot of different issues in it. Unfortunately, this 5-day return is a lot better than that one. So the first thing I'll show is the LOB from this return. I sent off a few different cards from LOB. The first were a couple of secret rares, a wavy Trihorn Dragon and a glossy Gaia the Dragon Champion. Both of them, funnily enough, got exactly the same grade, so they got mint 9s, but they also got the same subgrades with the 9s on centering and surface, and the 10 on edges, the 9-5 corners. The Trihorn Dragon I was a little bit disappointed with because I really thought the centering was good enough for a 9-5. It is a little bit off top to bottom, but left to right is great. The back is also pretty well centered, so I thought it was good enough for a 9-5 centering. And I may send this one for review to see if we can get that bumped. The Gaia the Dragon Champion I did not expect to see come back as a 9.5, so it pretty much did the same as I expected, although the subgrades were a little different because I was expecting probably a 9 on corners, thanks to the little bit of widening up there, and then probably a 9.5 surface because it's actually a really clean card, but I assume the reason it didn't get a 9.5 surface is because it does actually have a foil line error. It's quite hard to show on secret rares, but there's a line going down the card here. So yeah, overall, would have been nice to get a 9.5 on the Trihorn Dragon, but this wasn't a bad start to the submission. And the only other LOB card I had in this sub, which was a wavy left leg of the Forbidden One, actually did get a gem mid 9.5. So I was extremely happy with this card. It's possibly the hardest card to grade in the whole of LOB in wavy print. And I did think this one had a great shot, so I'm very glad to see that it got that grade. It's a really nice looking card. You can see it's got that lowered title that a lot of wavy prints have. It got the 9 on surface, which I do understand it. It did have some very minor scratches on the back that I'm probably not going to be able to show through the case. But overall, it's a fantastic card, and I'm very happy to have this as a 9.5. I already have an Exodia head graded 9.5 wavy. So now I have 2 of the hardest pieces out of the way. If I can get the left arm, I'll feel pretty confident that I can make the whole set, which would be great. I did also send a few cards from Tournament Pack. So the first one is an Axe Raider Super Rare from Tournament Pack 1. Now, funnily enough, this card was actually also submitted, this same copy, in my previous return video. If you watched that video, it got a 9 overall with an 8.5 on surface. Now, I was very unhappy with that, so I cracked the card, I resubmitted it. This time it got a 9.5 surface and a very solid 9.5 overall, with even a 10 on edges. I was happy to see that the grader in this sub gave me some 10s on edges, corners, and surface, where the cards were in really good shape, because in my previous couple of returns I didn't actually get a single 10 in those categories, no matter whether the card was pack fresh or not. The next card was probably the most expensive card in the entire submission. So it's a TP2 Morphing Jar, and it actually has the Jinzo error. It's very difficult to say what the ratio of normal morphing jars to this error is, but it's definitely a pretty small percentage of jars that have the error. And when you think that TP2 was a pretty short printed set to begin with, it's a very difficult error to find, especially in good condition. Now, I didn't actually necessarily expect this card to even get a 9. I thought it might come back an 8.5, just because there's a fair amount of whitening on the top back edge. But they gave it the 8.5 on edges, which meant that it got the overall 9. So I was very happy about that. It's a great looking card from the front, and it's not something I plan to sell either way, but it's great to have it slapped up with that mint 9 grade, because it means that it matches my other Tournament Pack Ultras. And speaking of Tournament Pack Ultras, the next card in the submission was actually my Needleworm. So this copy of Needleworm has incredible centering as far as they go. It's actually pretty much 50-50 both ways when you're looking at it in the middle. The problem with it is that it does have tilted centering, which pretty much every Needleworm I've ever seen does. Now I thought the centering was good enough for a 9.5, just because of how well set it is on both sides. But they actually gave it a 9, which was a little bit disappointing. Aside from that, the corners got 9.5, which I expected them to, and I probably expected both of the edges and the surface to get a 9 as well. They're pretty solid, but they're not quite perfect. So I haven't decided yet if I'm going to try and resubmit this card to get the overall 9.5, or if I'm going to keep it like this, because I do think it has a shot at a 9.5, which is currently population 0 at Beckett. So even though this is already a fantastic grade for this card, I'll have to think over whether I want to keep it like this or send it again. We're actually already pretty near the end of the submission because it wasn't a big one, but there were still a couple of cards left and some pretty good stuff. So I sent 2 ghost rares in this sub. The first was a Rainbow Dragon, which again I thought this had a great chance for a 9.5. I really thought the surface should get a 9.5 because the foil actually has no scratches at all. But unfortunately it does have a little bit of waxing on the back. I don't know if I'll be able to show it. And they thought that was enough to knock it down to a 9. Corners are probably fair at a 9 because they do have a bit of whitening on the back. So overall, I'm not going to crack this one and resubmit it. I'll just stick with the 9. Still a really nice grade on the first ever Ghost Rare in the TCG. Pretty iconic card. And the other Ghost that I sent actually did get a gem. So this is my first edition Ancient Fairy Dragon. And the thing I'm really happy about with this copy is if you check the pop report for this card, all but one of the other 9.5s graded has a 9 on corners, because they normally have some pretty big white nicks right out the factory on the back, especially on this corner. Now this card doesn't have absolutely perfect corners, but it is a lot better than most. So I was really happy to see it get that 9.5 corners. The centering got a 9, which honestly I did think it could be a 9.5. It's great left to right. Again, it's just that top to bottom issue. But I'm happy with it, even as a basic 9.5, because these first edition short printed 5D sets are super hard to grade as gems. Now the next couple of cards are probably what I was most excited about in the entire submission. So these are the 2 ultra rares from my previous video, which if you haven't seen that, I opened a unlimited glossy print starter deck Yugi and starter deck Kyber set. So first off, the Blue Eyes from that opening unfortunately didn't get a gem mint grade. It got a 9 overall. I did expect it most likely to get an 8.5 on centering because of how shifted it is left to right. I thought it had a chance for a 9 on centering, but it was definitely closer to an 8.5. The thing I was a little bit disappointed about with this card is that it got a 9 on surface. Now the surface is essentially flawless on this card, but it does have a little print dot up here, which I definitely didn't expect a 10 on surface with that dot. But at the same time, I thought a 9.5 would still be fair because the rest of the card is so clean. But unfortunately, they did give it the 9 on surface, although they gave it a 10 on edges and corners to kind of make up for it. So overall, I thought this card had an outside shot at a 9.5, but even as a 9, I'm still very happy with this card. I never expected to own a Glossy Unlimited one with a grade this high. And the Dark Magician actually did extremely well. So it did get a 9.5, which I expected it to, but I did not expect it to get a 9.5 as strong as it got. So in the end, it actually got a quad plus 9.5. It's only 0.5 away from pristine. And I did think that the centering was good enough for a 10, and the corners as well. And in fact, I thought even the surface had a shot at a 10 because there wasn't really anything wrong with it. But at the same time, the card had a couple of little bits of whitening on the front, just from the factory. It's not really edge wear, you only see it from certain angles, but I did think that that might knock the edges down to a 9. And overall, I'm much happier with this grade than if it got the 10 on surface, but the 9 on edges. So this was definitely, for me, the highlight of the return, and I'm extremely happy to add this card to my collection. Alright, and the last couple of cards from the submission are actually Pokemon cards. So first up is a Jungle First Edition Wigglytuff. Now this is one of the lowest population Jungle Hollows, just because it has that light background which always scratches so easily. I pulled this card myself about 10 to 12 years ago out of a Jungle box I opened. Kept it in my binder all that time, and luckily nothing actually happened to it during that period, so it remained in perfect condition. and I'm very happy to see it come back as a quad 9.5. It's probably one of the stronger Wigglytuff gems out there because it doesn't even have really any factory silvering, which the majority of jungle cards have because of how they were cut. And the other card I got back was my first edition Neo Revelation Suicune. Again, I thought this card would get a 9.5, and I thought it would get the 9 on corners because it has just a little bit of whitening on the back corners. But what I was really happy about was to see this come back with a 10 on surface, because that's almost impossible on WotC Hollows to get a card without any print lines. Now this card, funnily enough, was in my previous return video as well. And in that return, it got an 8.5 on surface, which I thought was completely unjustified. So it goes to show the inconsistencies you can get even with Beckett, because this card went all the way from an 8.5 on surface one time to a 10 on surface the next. So now the return's out of the way, I'll just quickly run through the next submission that I'm sending off as well. I'm going to be sending these cards off in a 20-day submission, which at the moment there isn't actually an estimate on Beckett's website for how long it will even take. I'm probably expecting something like 30 to 40 working days, but I really wouldn't be surprised if it took longer than that as well. I'm not sending a lot of cards, I think it's 9 total. And yeah, we'll just run through them now quickly. So the first one is a Cursed Dragon Glossy that I picked up recently. What's cool about this card is you can see it's got the foil line error. Now, I really don't know how to expect this card to grade, because I've seen Beckett grade a foil line error anything from an 8 on surface all the way up to a 10. So it really depends a huge amount on the grader. Aside from that, the card is gem mint, but I'm probably not expecting a gem mint overall grade because of the error. The next card is something I'm pretty excited to send. It's an LOB Glossy Unlimited Dark Magician. As far as I know, there is not a single Dark Magician, Red Eyes, or Blue Eyes graded gem mint, either by PSA or Beckett, for Glossy Unlimited LOB. So I think this has a pretty good shot at getting a 9.5, and that'll be really cool if it does. The next card is one of my favorite cards I own, but at the same time, I really have mixed feelings about this card now, because I've sent it twice to Beckett, and both times they've given it the 8 on surface. And again, this is more or less a pack fresh card. It just has the foil line error, which lines up really nicely with the artwork, as you can see. I'd love to see this card come back as a gem, because I do think it has potential for that. But at this point, realistically, I'll be more than happy to just get it back as a 9, because it's got an 8.5 the last couple of times. And I just don't think that's justified. This is another resub here, this Monster Reborn. It's a beautiful faded wavy copy. Again, I don't really know how to expect this one to grade, because for the most part it would be an easy gem mint, but the top right corner is pretty badly miscut. It's not exactly a square corner, but it's just not the correct shape for a corner to be. So realistically, I expect an 8.5 on corners. That's what it got last time, but last time it also got an 8.5 on centering, which I really didn't think was justified. I think a 9 would be fair enough, but if anything, it could even be a 9.5. So we'll see how that does. I'm hoping for a 9 overall. The next one I'm sending is my Royal Decree from TP4. This one probably won't get a gem because it's off center and has a few little issues on the back. But again, I think it can get a 9. And I thought it would be nice to round out a set of the the big 4 as they're called, Tournament Pack Ultras, because I already have TP1, TP2, and TP3 as 9s. Then I'm sending a couple more Ghost Rares in this sub. This is one that I picked up recently. It's a Majestic Red Dragon from Absolute Power Force. A lot of Ghost Rares from the later 5Ds and Zexal era have gone up a huge amount this year. So I think this card was raw about 70, 80 bucks at the beginning of the year. Now I'm seeing them going for $350, $400, which is pretty insane. I picked this one up super cheap a while back. I don't know if it'll get a gem because it has a couple of little scratches on the foil, and it's a European card, so they always have a tiny bit of whitening on the corners. But even a 9 I'll be extremely happy with for what I paid. And this card probably will be for sale. It might be the only card from this submission that goes up for sale. So the next one is the big boy himself, Stardust Dragon. This is another card I've had in my collection for quite a while. I'd never really thought about grading it, but I looked over it recently when I was putting this sub together, and it was actually a lot better shape than I remembered it being. The foil is actually really nice. I mean, you can see there are a lot of scratches on the card saver, but the actual card has almost no scratching at all on the foil. The centering is good. The back edges definitely have a little bit of whitening, and the same with the corners. So I probably expect an overall grade of 9, but even a 9 on this card sells for a lot. I saw a PSA 9 recently sold for 2.5k on eBay. I don't know if that was real or not, but it's definitely a very valuable card either way. Right, and the last couple of cards are again Pokemon. So I'm sending an Entei, which it got a 9 in my previous sub, but I thought I'd try it one more time because it's a pretty clean card. Now I've got that Suicune as a 9-5. It would be nice to try and make the set of the 3. And the other one is a Mischievous, also from Neo Revelation. This was one of my favorite sets when I was a kid. All of these cards, I should say, I've had since I was a lot younger than I am now. But now that the cards are worth so much more, I thought it was worth sending them off to get slabbed up. I think this is one of the lowest pop WotC holos in PSA 10, because it usually has some kind of print line somewhere on the card. This one does have, like, I think one little print line here. But overall, it's actually pretty nice. I don't know exactly what it'll get. I'm thinking some kind of 9, maybe with an 8.5 on corners because it does have some whitening. But yeah, we'll have to see on that one. Alright, so that pretty much does it for this video, guys. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, as always. If you have any questions, just put them down in the comments below, or any suggestions for future videos you'd like to see. And for now, this is Schloss signing out, and I will see you next time.